Hey, everybody, here we are with Tom T. Moore, The Gentle Way. Hi, Tom.
I've got, there we go.
Oh, you
There's
had to hit the button. It's okay to record.
Says, yeah, got it or something or other.
So Tom is a native of Dallas, Texas, and then to Florida. Oh, no, then to Fort Worth for 10 years. And during his university days, he worked as a variety of jobs to help pay for school, but found out to be on the dance committee entertainment. It was head of the all-university trip committee. Little did he know that those interests would lead to two major occupations. He went through a 4-year ROTC Army program to help pay for his education. After his graduation, he spent 2 years in the Army as a second lieutenant and then first lieutenant. 1 year was spent in South Korea as part of the peacekeeping force on a Hawk missile site and battery compound. On his last assignment, he was the youngest assistant professor of military science in the 4th Army area of the University of Oklahoma. So did you live in Oklahoma?
For that 6-month period, yes.
Okay. You know, that's where my kinfolk is from.
Norman. Good old Norman.
So how did he begin on the path he is on now? One day in Dallas Morning News, they had a story about an astrologer whose hobby was the Dallas Cowboys. At that time, the team had never been to the Super Bowl. The astrologer said they were not going that year, given a number of reasons why, but they would go the next year. Tom had never read an astrology story, so he tore out the story, put it in his desk drawer. At the end of the football season, he removed it and discovered the astrologer had been 80% correct. Then he reserved 300 airline seats a year in advance to Miami and became the first tour operator in Dallas to ever run a trip to the Super Bowl in 1971. Are you serious?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it really opened a lot of doors. Enough money.
I'm very good at predicting who's going to win.
Except a deposit on a duplex. Opened my own travel agency. A lot of things came out of that. And needless to say, at that time I owned the largest ski club in Texas, snow ski club, and we started having all of our parties on Venus, Trines, the moon or Mars or all those things like that, and we're quite successful.
Yeah. My God, you don't look old enough to have done all this with the Korean and all that stuff in the military. Then you ran this gig, and then they're saying, well, how did you become who you are now? And it starts with you recording dreams.
Well, of course, I started studying astrology, but not to become an expert, just to help me in business, because I started out with nothing. I mean, literally. And I slowly built everything up from scratch. And that's sort of been the hallmark of what I've done over the years, is to find a niche and then do something that fills it. And so things rolled along. In about 1979 or 80, my wife and I were supposed to go to Manila for a travel agent world conference. And I had a dream where there was an explosion and a woman and a man involved, and there went an ambulance. Very seldom on my street. So a woman and some men involved. So we canceled Manila and added days on to Hong Kong and Taipei. And sure enough, the first day of the World Congress, terrorists blew up a bomb at the front of the hall where I like to sit and injured 10 travel agents. And they arrested a woman and 4 men as the terrorists.
Holy cow.
So after that, I said, I'm going to record my dreams the rest of my life. And I have. I've got books and books dreams.
Me too. I've got books and books. My dreams don't necessarily end up like your dreams.
Well, I mean, most of my dreams are like anybody else's. And I've asked about dreams in my meditative sessions, and I'm told that you mix past lives, you mix future lives, you mix the present, you mix parallel lives, which we'll touch on probably today. And so you're in a quantum state, and you even also are taken all the way across the universe, and we're the big problem solvers of the universe. So we go somewhere that someone's having a problem, and we help them solve it. And that's because on Earth, we solve more problems in one day than most societies in the universe solve in a year or 2 years. So we're the big problem solvers, and our dreams, in order not to frighten us, they convert a being that doesn't look anything like us to a human being, and so that's how we're able to help them.
So then you and your wife started taking a class with Sturpin, or what was his last name?
Something.
Dick Supton. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I and my wife went to Sedona, Arizona in 2005, July, and we attended this Supton seminar where it was supposed to help you increase your psychic abilities. And he would put us into these light meditative states 3 or 4 times a day. And by the end of the day, you were so high, you felt like you'd had a bottle of wine. And it's a great safe way to get high, I guess you could say. And so the second day, we were supposed to be asking, we were supposed to try automatic writing. And so I decided to try to contact a Indian shaman from the 1600s that had been channeled for me by Robert Shapiro. And so when he put us under, I said, "Reveals the Mysteries," which is his name in English. "Are you there?" And he said, "Yes, I am, Tom." And I said, "Oh, wow, that's great." And so we proceeded to converse, and he told me I was to reintroduce people to the gentle way. And so he gave me the name of my first book, the very, very first time I ever talked to him.
Wow.
And he continued to say, he said, "Tom, you're going to write books." And I said, No. By this time, I'm in international film and TV program distribution. And I thought I was going to be doing that until I retired. And he was very emphatic, and he said, "No, books." So I said, "Okay." So I wrote my first book, which was the Gentle Way book, and the Gentle Way, pardon me, a self-help guide for those who believe in angels. But on my website, it was www.thegentlewaybook.com, because I made it singular, thinking that I would never be able to write more than one book. And here I am 6 books later.
Wow. And then you have contact with the extraterrestrials.
Yeah, he was introduced to me in 2008, and Theo, who I named him Theo because Theo says that humans don't have the vocal cords to pronounce angelic names, and so he said, "You could call me Tom, Dick, or Harry, but Tom will be a little hard in your meditations." So I thought for a while, and a couple of weeks later, Theo popped in my mind. Much later, years later, I was to find out I've called him Theo in many other lives. So that's just how it kind of settled in on me.
So would you say the gentle way came through them?
Hmm?
Would you say the gentle way was sort of given to you through them?
Well, certainly starting with Reveals the Mysteries, who it also turns out is one of my soul brothers, I'll call him. He's a member of my soul cluster, which we can kind of get into. Basically, a soul cluster are the fragments of a soul having lives on earth. And so typically in a cluster, there are 6 to 12 fragments. Each of these fragments are given different uh, interests. So as an example, Antura, who is also a member of my soul cluster, has had 800 lives on earth, but that's been as an explorer. And he also likes to lay out towns and villages from the very, very start, all the streets and everything. And so as an example, he was Sacagawea, who led the Lewis and Clark expedition across the northern part of what's now the United States. And he was also Marco Polo's uncle, who traveled the Silk Road before Marco Polo ever traveled it and wrote about it. So he loves exploration, which is why he's a member of a first contact grassroots team that's in a Syrian mothership 50 miles above the earth, sitting there. And this year we're supposed to be.
Okay. Okay.
Sounds strange, but that's what they tell me.
Well, you know that high as a kite thing you're talking about? I
Yep.
get that a lot when I allow myself to be just totally quiet
Mhm.
and energetically, you know, not look for them, but allow them to work through me. And woo, I get high as a kite.
Yes. And I might mention to everyone, and we may have gotten into this in one of our previous sessions, but I'll remind everybody. Everyone, now I've asked 30,000 questions or so in a meditative state. Anyone can do what I do, all right? Anyone technically could do what you do.
Yeah.
Because we all have this pineal gland in the sort of in the back of our heads, more towards the middle, and it acts as an antenna for every type of telepathic thought, feeling, vision, you name it. All these names people give what happens all goes through this antenna, and it's all processed in our brains after that. And you just have to put yourself into a light meditative state and then ask to speak to your own guardian angel, who's your best friend. And that's the place to start. Now, in the Hindu religion, they call it the third eye, but it's
Right.
still the pineal gland. Same thing, just different words.
Wow. Yeah, and you know what happens is people overthink instead of allowing the information come through.
Mhm.
They overthink it because ye
Yes.
are gods. We're all connected.
Yes, and certainly the hardest thing for me starting out was to not let my ego answer the question. And I'd keep asking Theo, well, how am I doing? And he'd keep saying, practice, practice, practice.
Yeah.
Every time I'd ask him, he'd say, practice, practice, practice. And I finally gave up asking, because that's what he'd tell me every single time.
That's something. But you know, the more you connect to your, I call it almost like the DNA from the realm. I see us as light bodies, like almost like that movie Cocoon, that when we come out of our body, we're brilliant light. And all of us in that light body has all the past life and all the DNA connections and all the information in the connection to the higher realm. Because ye are gods, everybody has a piece of it. But the problem is people tend to worry that, did I get it wrong? You know, as I grow in my readings, I notice I tend to be more correct because I don't worry about it being wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And I just, you and I are on the same page on that. I just receive, and sometimes I'll say, did I receive that correctly? And 98% of the time they'll say, yes, you did. Or they'll say, well, almost, and so, we're not perfect. Anyone that does this work, in my free newsletters I send out every week, I always say at the top, I say, I estimate that I'm 80 or 90% accurate.
Right.
And because I'm told that no one that does the work that, we do, it is 100%. Not
Well,
even,
also, isn't there more free will and things can change?
yes. And that's part of it. We deal with all these thousands of probabilities for every single day. And as we get closer to the day, the number of probabilities keeps reducing and reducing and reducing until that main probability comes through for that day. And that's so hard to understand. I mean, for me still. So, it's something that I wish I could understand, because, typically I'll get like the presidential elections wrong because, take as an example, when Trump was elected, it was down to a 10% probability that he would be elected. And so I assumed that he wouldn't. And I said, what did I misreceive? And I was told, well, your souls decided that you needed to have that learning.
Okay.
So, and
Because
boy,
sometimes in the resistance, we create awakenings.
yes.
But I can't read like the 49ers, one of my favorite teams, or the San Francisco Giants. I can't sit down and read on that because I have skin in the game.
Yeah.
But like Andre, Astrology Alert, I had him on the show. He said, Linda, who's going to win the soccer? And I don't watch soccer, nothing. I said, well, who's the characters? He said, Brazil and somebody else. And I said, oh, Brazil.
Yeah.
And they won.
And sometimes I'll get sort of the answer in a dream. And so, of course, since I went to TCU, they're going to be playing in the championship game on this coming Monday. And so when they were going to go to the runner-up, the semifinal, I had a dream where it was 17-0, but it was in the middle of the game. Well, lo and behold, it turned out to be at one point 17-17.
Whoa.
But they won. Now I haven't had any dream so far for this coming Monday's game. So, and sometimes if you don't, then it's kind of good because you're it's going to turn out all right, and they don't want to ruin it for you.
Exactly. So today we were going to discuss what is people's life purpose. What is your purpose for being here? I used to ask that a lot. Now I know, but I didn't know for years.
Yeah. Well, let's go on the whole purpose as compared to individual persons. And the creator of this universe, and I have to remind people, there are people that sincerely believe that their God is the only God, and anybody else's God is Satan or the devil or something. Okay, and that's not the case. People, there's one creator for this whole universe, only one creator, but known by many different names. And the creator of this universe decided that it wanted to see if 4 negative energies. Okay, I'm having to go slow on this because it gets technical for a whole Texas boy. And okay, so there are 4 negative energies that had never ever been used by any of the trillions of creators and trillions of universes. So our universe and all the other universes only exist in the 10 positive energies. So the creator of our universe wanted to see if there was some way to work with these 4 negative energies. And so we were sort of like the guinea pigs. And sure enough, eventually we kept raising our vibrational levels to the point where we were able to work with these 4 negative energies, and the rest of all anything outside of our solar system was only exists in the 10 positive energies. So that's one thing. We became the stars of every single universe in existence because we're the only ones that have been able to work with these 4 negative energies. And no one has been able, I've had several people try and name the negative energies. Nobody's gotten it right. I'm told that sometime in the future, somebody will get it almost correct for naming the 4 energies, but no one's got even close so far. And I've had a number of people that have tried.
So what do you, how would you identify that? What would you, does it have an actual name?
They're just energies, but they're negative energies. And that's what, they told me that, don't even really try to understand too much because nobody has been able to work with these negative energies, even though they exist. And I said, well, okay, name me some positive energy. Well, we can't. So anyway, the solar system is all negative energies. Anything outside the Oort belt, it goes back to 10 energies. So that's where that comes from. So Creator needed some guinea pigs.
Yeah.
Okay. Or volunteers, shall we say. And so our souls were the top achievers, you could call us, okay, that volunteered for what's called the Earth experiment, to exist in these 4 negative energies and show that they could be worked with. So that was the start of what's called the Earth experiment. And it's to learn how to live, or it was to learn how to live with these 4 negative energies. And as we progressed along, we destroyed ourselves a few times, namely Atlantis, Atlanteans, and Lemurians. We all destroyed ourselves because we were working with these negative energies. But finally, in August of 1987, we had the harmonic convergence, and that's where the positive, or I should say, the vibrational levels reached a point where we will never destroy ourselves again. Sorry, I was getting
as human form.
Yes. So that happened, and so we don't have to worry. A lot of people have this remembrance of losing their lives during Atlantean times, or losing their lives during Lemurian times, and they have a deep-seated fear that they're going to do it again. And I'm told to tell everyone that it will never happen again. You will never destroy yourselves. All this talk by, let's just say, Putin about nukes and everything, that's not going to happen.
Oh, no, I know. They already told me. My guide said he'll never be able to. And also the ETs are saying it. Yeah. Even if he was to shoot one off, it would dissipate or something. They have the ability to stop it.
Right. They know how to stop it.
Well, someone told me, is this true? In Chernobyl, there's actually a picture that was in the newspaper when Chernobyl started to melt or whatever, of an actual UFO over the top of Chernobyl that was taking up excess. They said if Chernobyl had gone like it should have, a lot of Russia would have been wiped out, but this UFO stopped it. That's what a pretty credible person told me.
Yeah, I have not seen that.
I haven't seen the newspaper article.
Something to look for, but I haven't
Yeah.
seen it. Okay.
So our purpose, yeah.
Okay, so as part of these lives that we agreed to have on Earth, we agreed to be veiled. Now, why are we veiled? It's because far into the future. Well, first of all, we were guaranteed that it would fast track raising our vibrational levels. That's the first big thing that they got the benefit of by going through these lives where they're veiled. They didn't know how they got there, who they were, and they would live these very hard lives in many cases and not understand why. Okay, so they had to be veiled. Now, the reason for being veiled is that Creator wants us to learn how to make trillions of decisions a second, just like Creator does, because eventually in the future, and this is the far future, long after the Earth experiment is over in 7,000 years, we're going to meld together. All of these soul fragments are going to meld together and become a creator ourselves and take over running this universe for Creator and allow Creator to go up to like the 32nd level. And Creator for a long time didn't even know anything about itself. But in recent times, Creator told me, and by the way, anyone can talk to Creator. Creator says it can have trillions of conversations going on all at the same time. He said, Tom, tell everyone that I'll answer even trivial questions. You just have to ask for me. But most people believe they have to go through clergy of some type or other. But anybody can talk to Creator. So Creator says he's been talking to another creator that's already made the jump, and he's starting to learn about things that are so far beyond our understanding that it's
I know.
Tried to ask about something. He said, yeah, I'm sorry you wouldn't understand.
Well, sometimes my guides, when I'm reading somebody and we're intensely talking about something, the guys will say this to me. You have to understand, Linda, he's thinking as man thinks. Because
thinking is what?
As man thinks.
Oh, man thinks, yes.
So a lot of people can't help it because they're in this human experience. Yes. And you almost have to step outside yourself and tap into that universal consciousness, which I can guarantee you beyond a reasonable doubt that has gifted me so much, it's not even funny. And it exists. And I try to tell people how to get there, but sometimes people will argue with me in the human term. And there's nothing I can do about that. I just have to wish that they might be able to see it.
And that came up for me just in the last one or two times that I did a meditative session. Antura, recently I found out that it was Antura's ship that was the mothership that passed over Phoenix and was known as the Phoenix Lights.
Oh my God.
That was Antura's ship.
Wow.
And so and first I asked him, they have different ideas of what the ship looked like because it was so dark except for the lights. And some people made it into like a V like this. And I asked him, he said, no, I said, is it more like a boomerang? And he said, yes, it's more curved. And then I said, okay, well, because I knew more or less when his ship came and took the place of another Syrian mothership and took over. And I said, well, was it the other mothership that did that, or was it yours? And he said, he said, no, he said, keep in mind, Tom, we can go back in time. And so we simply went back in time to be the ship that went over Phoenix. And he said, you're thinking in linear terms, and you can't think in linear terms because we can go past or future.
Wow. Wow. So they know what's going to happen in the future?
Oh, of course, all the way. But keep in mind, we are rewriting the past, the present, and the future. Okay. We're rewriting it as we go. So as an example, I know of one of my sole interests are religions. And in the future, I'm going to be L. Ron Hubbard's second wife, Sarah Northrop, and I'm going to help him write the Scientology book. But by then, we will sort of rewrite it, and it'll be a softer religion. And I also know that I'm going to be Queen Menon, and I'm going to be Haile Selassie, the emperor of Ethiopia's wife, and I'm going to be his main advisor. But we will also, and he was the start of the Rastafarian religion, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But that's going to be a softer way in some form or fashion. So you go back, if you're having past lives, you go back and rewrite things.
Wow.
And keep in mind, all the science fiction writers, and even like people like Musk or what's the guy with Apple, Steve Jobs, they all have had lives in the future, have seen these developments, and have come back to have lives in this time period to invent them.
Wow.
And the science, take Jules Verne. He had lives in the future where he saw submarines, and he saw the trip to the moon, things like that. And he went back and had a life where he wrote about it.
So if you were talking to a human being right now in this realm, to give someone that maybe is even losing hope a purpose as far as what their purpose is in this world, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that they need to be kind, compassionate, love everyone unconditionally, just like the Master of Love Jesus taught. Even he had to translate it into words that people could understand at that time, illiterate people, and he'd say, love thy neighbor. But in reality, he was saying, love everybody, whether they're, no matter their religion, their race, politics, whatever. And if you can do that, if you turn, I call it flipping on the love switch.
Right.
And if you can do that, it really changes your life.
Right.
Suddenly you're seeing people in a whole different light, that even if they're, they're having, people, I'm told, will be a hero in one life and a villain in the next for the learning of all the other soul clusters that they work with. Right. And you have to understand, there are people out there that are bad people, but they're having those lives for our learning, and we will learn from them. And if they go too overboard, then they have to balance those lives. So as an example, people think, oh, Hitler was just decomposed or whatever, but he's got 110 lives ahead of him in order to balance the life that he had in the Second World War.
Right, right.
And these will all be loving lives and probably great leaders of great compassion. But it's hard to imagine that for any
Right,
anybody like
exactly.
that. And I was told that some of his henchmen will even have more lives than that. I mean, I was told that it wasn't just 6 million Jews, it was more towards 7 because they had terrible records at that time.
Wow. Well, I know nothing like you. I've never had that kind of connection except post-cancer when I had this awakening. But the most important thing I have discovered, if you can't go beyond realm and all that, if future or past, the most important thing that I have tried to tell people that I found works in my life is just to be quiet, just to be without thought, because it's true about the Tao, what Eckhart Tolle and other people have taught. It's an ancient work, but it works. I'm telling you, because I would fall asleep if I listened to Eckhart Tolle back in the day before I got woke. Now I can't consume enough of it. Wayne Dyer even did a book about the Tao. That is, if you don't understand Eckhart Tolle, you can handle that. But in that quiet, it vibrationally connects you higher. Because what happened was I went through cancer. I gave my life over. Something happened to me. Then I started practicing the deep 3 breaths a day and being in that realm. And then what happens is, it's sort of like that which is like unto itself is drawn. You cannot create what you're not. So yeah, you can do peace, love, dove and all that, but there's a lot of damaged people out there, like even me, who was, had a father. I knew he loved me, but he cold cock you and beat you for looking at him the wrong way. That's my interpretation of man, was cruelty. So the only thing that helped me, and obviously I signed up for this life, probably did the same thing to him. But for those who can't go beyond anything but this realm at this time, all I ask you is to breathe 3 deep breaths and be quiet. And the other thing I did was hand it over. I said, look, because when I was begging for my life and they said, what are you doing? There's no such thing as death. And I felt so embarrassed. I said, oh my God, you're right. You're right. And then I said, into thy hands, I commence my spirit. If I die, I die, because I wanted to stay alive for my boys. I said, if I die, I die. And something in that moment happened to me that was beyond words. It was almost like a breeze went through me that said, thy will be done. My dog even sat down. He never sat down. He was always pushing, come on, mama, let's go. And I was zooming. I couldn't describe it. I thought if I touched an electrical socket, I'd blow it out. I just could not. I was like, I couldn't get the smell of the earth off my hands. And I was high as a kite for 2 days. Couldn't eat. If I can't eat, something's up. Couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, just zooming. And then it finally calmed down. And then that's when I started to work. That's when I started to think, well, let me look at this Eckhart Tolle again. That's when I started to practice what he said. And that's that vibrational, that's that energy I get that says, be quiet. And if you hand it over, if you say, look, I can't handle this anymore, I hand it to you. A lot of people have told me they did that. They practiced that. And sure enough, things started to turn because they stopped looking for outcomes. Be present, live in this realm at this moment, and stop looking for outcomes.
And that's part of the reason that I kept looking until I found benevolent outcomes, requesting most benevolent outcomes, that it started taking the fear away, taking stress away, and just thousands of people have written to me saying it's made their lives easier and better. Just got a couple of great emails today from people that I'll have in my Saturday blog. On Saturdays, typically I'll have a blog with 3 or 4 MBO and Benevolent Prayer stories that people send to me.
Oh, the MBO, and I tell you, there's so many people that have told me they practice that and it does so good. I do it all the time. But that also keeps you present, doesn't it?
Yes.
You're not la, 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 please God, you're most benevolent outcome. You're asking
and you release.
and you,
And that's the great thing about it. You release, and it's like,
yes.
you know,
And you trust in faith, knowing that it'll be okay.
yeah.
When I handed my life over, and when I said, fair enough, I handed over, I was willing to accept I may die. I would not have a life. And I was going to accept that in peace. And I guess they decided, nah, we're not going to kill you.
Not yet.
Not yet.
So anyway, we probably need to get back a little bit.
Okay.
We haven't discussed parallel lives.
Yes. Oh, that's interesting.
So, so we have typically each person on average has 600 to 800 lives on Earth. And I said, why is there such a big difference? And it's up to our souls. Some souls want to get these lives over with quickly, and they become what I call the drama queens. Something happening all the time in their lives. I mean, I've known a couple of people like that. And other souls want to take it slower. So it might, and they're not exactly 600 or exactly 800. It could be 597 or 603 or whatever, or 810, or anyway, that's for the average person. And then for each one of the lives you have on Earth, you also have 12 parallel lives, all at different frequencies. And so the higher frequencies are the easiest frequencies. And the one that I sort of just don't take any mind to almost is timeline 12, because that's non-physical. That's considered by our souls the perfect life. And all the other lives that we're having are all compared against that one. And I don't think that's kind of fair, but I mean, that's what they tell me. So I said, okay. So I typically look at 11 on down. We're on timeline number 6, which is the middle frequency. So typically the inventions and things like that all start on the higher timelines, and they work their way down through the lower timelines. The lower timelines have much harder lives. On timelines number 1 and 2, I died of congestive heart failure. I'm already left the building. On timelines 3 and 4, I never got into international film and TV distribution. I stayed in the tour business, and my wife and I divorced and married other people. Okay, so but then on this timeline and up through 8, we've been married now over 50 years, and we're when I went to TCU, I had to go through ROTC, 1, to help pay for college, but 2, otherwise I was going to be sent to Vietnam or something. And on the upper timelines, the Vietnam War did not happen at all. They settled their differences with no war. So, and on the upper timelines, instead of graduating with a degree in finance, I graduated with a degree in English and started writing science fiction books and eventually metaphysical books. So we all have these sort of different lives on these different frequencies. So that's when you're having dreams and you're having a dream where you say, boy, that was really, really real. Then maybe that's either a parallel life or, depending on how close it was, maybe a past life. So, but we have these 12 parallel lives, and that's why Gaia, the soul of the earth, had to become a quantum master, because she has to juggle 12 different earths. which is really hard.
Oh my
to
God, that
understand.
sounds like a lot of interruption.
Yeah. So, you know, that's
That's
parallel
interesting.
lives.
That's interesting. That's a lot of knowledge you got.
Well, it's just asking question after question after question.
Right.
And sometimes asking the same question more than once if I felt like I didn't receive it correctly.
So you have permission to ask questions, okay, once a month or something like that?
No, I try and do it at least twice a week.
Oh,
Right during the Christmas period. I just did one. When was it? This morning, I think. One forgets when you do these things because it was a long session, 2 hours. And
wow.
it's hard for me to go more than 2 hours because I lose my focus.
Right.
And,
What was the question?
what were the questions? Oh,
You remember?
hold on. I'll give you some. I'll just. Now, these are questions people send in to me. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Well, I told you I asked for the update on the Yellowstone and the probability of the West Coast earthquakes. I get to ask that every 6 months, and it's the same. It hasn't changed.
73% for Yellowstone. 73% for Yellowstone.
Yellowstone, right?
And 60 something for earthquake.
63% for West Coast earthquakes.
Okay.
Okay. And I specifically asked, I said, well, you've been having some earthquakes, in the Northern California. Yeah, that's because the rain sort of acted as grease and allowed it to move. Somebody asked, what was the purpose of the Teotihuacan temple and complex, and why are they there? Someone asked, what's the highest probability for when inflation will drop, immigration laws to be passed, and will debt be lowered? And someone asked,
did you get any answers for those?
oh, sure. Yeah, I get it. And
it'll be in his newsletter, you guys.
Yeah. And keep in mind, now that's what a page looks like, full of questions. Okay. So some of the questions are so pertinent, like, let's see, I have a question. Theo, was Damar or Damer Hamlin balancing a past life going into cardiac arrest during the game? And what about his nonprofit? And is this the beginning of the end of American football? Now, that is a very topical question. And so I'll probably have that in the next newsletter. Where something else, let's see, Theo, was the face on the cane Jack the Ripper? If so, was it Carl Feigenbaum? That may float back 3 or 4 more weeks before it gets in the newsletter.
Well, I'm very happy that he's extubated now and he's talking to his family.
Yes.
That's such good news. I don't know if he'll go back to football though.
I don't know if he'd be allowed to.
Yeah.
I would, if I were a team owner or coach, I'd say, I think your playing days are over. Go work on your nonprofit that's got over 6 million in it. Pay yourself some kind of little salary.
Yeah, well, they'll pay him too because he got hurt on the job.
Yes, he'll be probably pretty well taken care of by the owner of the
At
football.
24 years old. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But maybe that was, he only had $2,500 in that nonprofit.
I know, and it went up to 6 mil.
And maybe that's how the change in life, they had to hit him over the head with the proverbial 2x4 in order to get him to move over into working for.
And it's helping children.
Yes.
So that's great.
And it was a past life where he caused somebody else's heart to stop. So.
Oh, okay.
Was,
well, I knew that's what happened when it's like that hockey puck that hit that kid right in the chest Right
Yes.
when the electrical system is doing something, it will put you immediately in a cardiac arrest. And what happens is your heart actually turns into like a bag of worms. It's not pumping. You'll get weird effect on the what am I saying? The strip.
Yeah.
You'll get this. So they shocked him. I think they shocked him twice on the field to try to turn him into normal sinus rhythm.
Yeah.
But he still wasn't breathing on his own. But
Yeah.
apparently he coded again at the hospital.
Yeah.
But by the grace of God, if they hadn't been on that field and immediately got to him, he wouldn't have made it.
They said within 1 minute they were on him. So yeah, and I've had congestive heart failure twice, and that was to pay off or balance a past life when I was a young German soldier in World War One, and I was killed fairly early in the war, but not before killing other soldiers.
Right.
And so I was told that yes, that was my job, to be a soldier and kill the enemy, but I also brought grief and heartache to the families and friends of those people that I killed, and so I agreed to suffer heartache in this life to balance that. So
wow.
your soul has really weird ways of you paying off debts.
Yeah, I imagine they're interesting. I'd like to know what my debts were. But you know what I do is I thank the universe. In fact, when I was in the middle of all the heartache, even as a young kid, I used to say, whatever it was that I did to deserve this, it must have been pretty bad. So please, please forgive me, I said.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and you got to forgive yourself, and then every morning, as I've told you previously, I ask any and all beings to come to the aid and comfort of anyone that I've ever harmed, either physically, mentally, morally, spiritually, or emotionally, any past, present, or future life, and ask that any and all beings come to the aid and comfort of the families and friends of anyone that I've ever harmed in any way, in any past, present, or future life. You'll find that on the signs page on my website, www.thegentlewaybook.com. So, and that came about exactly for me asking about why was I having congestive heart failure, and it all came out of it. And I asked, well, have I ever said this prayer in any other life? And I was told, no, you never said this.
Okay.
This is the first time you were inspired to come up with this. And I was told, Tom, say this every single morning and tell your readers to say this every single morning, because it will do wonders for both your past and future lives.
Wonderful.
So I'm rewriting the past and I'm rewriting the future.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, thank you, my friend. Can you believe it?
We're at the end.
We took an hour. So thank you, everybody. I'll post a link how to contact you and for your webpage on this video.
Good.
And appreciate it. We wish you all peace and happiness. And I got a lot of people said, when is that Tom coming back on your show? Yeah, and I've had a lot of people that have said, oh, Linda turned me on to you. Yeah. Well, then everybody in the prayers that I get my Tuesday prayers, they say MBO, MBO, MBO. So I say it out loud. So when I do the prayer, instead of saying MBO, I say most benevolent outcome. Yes, and I do too, but some people have a problem with saying benevolent. It's just not a word that a lot of people used to use. Now it's become more prevalent over the years. I mean, much more so. But I was told that even if someone just says MBO, their guardian angels know what they're saying, so don't worry. Yeah. Amen, my friend. Okay, you guys, we'll talk to you again, and we'll be back Well, we had too long apart, but there was all kinds of craziness. Now I'm done with readings. So
Oh, you
I
are?
have more time open.
Oh.
I finally
okay.
retired from readings. All right. Cheers, everybody.